They drive the biggest trucks on Earth.
I want to play.
Along the toughest roads and the loneliest highways in the world. They are Australia's Outback truckers.
Oh, why won't he listen?
This is Outback trucking, shit happens.
Men.
Big trucker coming through.
And women.
This is a big machine.
On marathon runs. Through some of the most inhospitable terrain on the planet. Out here, only one thing matters. Getting there and getting back alive. In Tasmania,
Think we're mad bringing a Sammy down here?
Ewan Stevens is battling the backwoods and hitching a ride to deliver a volatile load with a real sting in the tail.
If we don't get away here in good time, our bees start dying.
On the island wilderness of Tasmania, 55-year-old Ewan Stevens is at the wheel of an annual pilgrimage. Over the next few days, he'll brave a gauntlet of mountain passes and narrow dirt tracks to deliver a fragile, volatile load
It needs to concentrate.
deep into the heart of a remote forest. Ewan's hauling bees, 30 million of them.
They've got 100,000 bees in each hive, and they're all crammed in there. They don't like being transported. Probably go home with 70 stings each. Doesn't matter how much smoking that you give them, they still get very nasty.
Ewan's leading a convoy of trucks on 2 overnight runs. Starting at their factory in Mole Creek, they'll be moving 300 beehives from their winter shelter to their summer homes in the midst of a World Heritage forest. In all, it's just over a 700-kilometre run through some of the most remote bushland in Tasmania. This arduous trip is about one thing, the rare leatherwood tree.
That is unique to Tasmania. It's the only place in the world it grows.
This precious flower gives the Stevens family honey its distinct flavour, but it blooms for just 4 weeks a year. Ewan has less than 3 days to deliver 45 tonnes of hives to the leatherwood trees. The Stevens family have been making honey in Tasmania for a century. It's the family business and their passion. Ewan's parents, now into their 80s, still keep a watchful eye on things.
You need to get your cloth and wipe around there, otherwise you're going to have sticky right up your arm.
In our day, a lot of the trucks had no brakes, no lights. But we still grow.
Ewan's restored the family's fleet of vintage trucks himself.
I'm self-taught mechanic, and I love doing all the work on them. Building engines, especially building engines. I love building engines.
Over the next 3 days, the Stevens' livelihood is at stake. Ewan must get the bees into the forest alive and on time.
If we're delayed, it'll cost us $25,000, $30,000 a day, probably more. Can't afford a breakdown. Can't afford stopping on the side of the road with bees on. You have to keep the wheels going.
In Tasmania, Ewan Stevens and nephew Josh have arrived to start loading the first of 300 beehives. The first challenge is getting to them, at the bottom of a steep rise.
Because of the rain and that this morning, it's too wet and slippery to go down into there. So we're going to leave the truck up here on the hill and we'll bring them out with a forklift. Give them a good smoke, Josh. The smoke actually dopes the bees, so they don't get going at me when I put the forklift underneath and rattle the hive.
To keep the bees calm, Ewan needs to load up as quickly and smoothly as possible. But the bumpy, wet ground is making the job even harder.
We're having trouble here loading the bees because the ground's like sand.
And the bees are getting restless.
They bounce around, I don't like it. If you can bang on their hives, they'll come out and sting you.
With each load, the hillside is getting more and more churned up. There's nearly 500,000 bees balanced on the forklift. Every bump threatens to topple the hives.
I'm on a bad angle, so I'm having great difficulty.
The last thing Ewan needs is the whole swarm to turn on him.
If I drop one of these pallets, it would just splatter and the bees would go mad. Pull it out then, before Josh.
Josh and Ewan have no choice but to manhandle the pallet onto the truck. And Josh is paying the price.
Yeah, I got a bee on the inside of my thigh.
While he's still new to beekeeping, Josh knows the hazards intimately.
Getting stings up the inside of your nose hurts more than getting stung on your private parts. That's speaking from experience.
It's almost nightfall before Ewan can get underway.
It's been a bit of a drama here tonight. It's one of the worst load-ups I've had for a long time. I am behind schedule now, but that's beekeeping.
Together with brother Neil, Ewan has 350 kilometres to cover to reach the Leatherwood trees.
It's a long, hard pull and it's a fair way. There's no let up in it.
With the bees on board, they must reach the forest as quickly as possible. They'll drive late into the night, on wet roads and through winding mountain passes to get there.
This is where the road is very winding and narrow. It's got 99 corners and 1.5 miles.
With the sunrise, the hives are starting to heat up. Now it's non-stop until they reach the forest.
Once these trucks are stopped, you've got about 10 or 15 minutes, then you start losing thousands of bees. They start dying because they're under shade cloths and they start suffocating.
At the end of the mountain pass, 38 kilometres of rough dirt tracks leading into the forest. On the way in, Ewan wants to check on some hives he's already moved. He's shocked at what he finds. Some of the hives have been vandalised, killing the bees inside.
Pisses me off. I see this all the time.
After a long, hard journey, it's a heartbreaking sight. In Tasmania's high country, bee trucker Ewan Stevens has been met by a shocking sight.
There's a yard of bees we put in here last week. Vandals have been here and pushed 2 of them over, and because it's been so wet, they're dead.
The loss is painful for Ewan and the family business.
200,000 bees dead there on the ground. Try and make a bloody living, and vandals, they don't give us stuff. And they won't survive.
But Ewan needs to put this behind him. 6 kilometres ahead is his drop-off point, where he'll unload one of his 2 rigs. But this is no place to take a truck.
This track is normally a 4-wheel drive track.
Everywhere you look, there's a hazard.
It is very tight squeeze. I think sometimes you think we're mad bringing a semi down here. It's a bit of a nerve-wracking track. This corner we're coming to now is completely fell out underneath of it. It starts to move, you'll lose the trailer. We're going, quick. Keep it going,
After a close shave comes another problem. Fallen trees are blocking the road. With the truck stationary and the shade cloth removed, now it's a race to get moving before the bees start to fly away. Once the truck moves on, thousands could be left behind. Finally, there's a light at the end of the forest tunnel. The boys have reached their holy grail, the rare Leatherwood trees. This is what the whole trip has been about. Now the work can begin to drop off 15 million bees at their summer home.
It feels good to have them in here. There's quite a bit more flowering we thought would be in here. All we need now is some sunshine so they can get out and make some honey for us.
But this is just the halfway mark. Tomorrow, the boys must go where there's no road at all. On a foggy mountain road in Tasmania. Once again, the Stevens family are driving through the night to get their bees to the rare leatherwood trees.
It's a matter of life and death for us. There's $350,000 worth of bees on these trucks, so it has to happen.
But today is a trip with a difference. Their destination is so hard to reach, there's no road at all. The only way to get there is by rail.
We're on a deadline to catch a railway at 6 o'clock in the morning.
Ewan and the boys will need to drive both trucks onto the back of a special train that will take them deep into the forest. They're racing the clock again.
Because it's a forecast of a hot day down there tomorrow. So we need to be there on time and get the bees off.
It's sunrise by the time they reach the train yard.
Grab some straps, Josh, quick.
Now every minute is critical. They need to drive both trucks onto two specially made carriages and get moving before the bees become trapped in their nets and die.
They're going to come out in a minute. We've been here 10 minutes. We've got to get moving.
But as the train hooks up, there's a problem.
We're right on our limit for the length.
Ewan's truck is too long for its carriage. If he can't fit on the train, he won't be going anywhere. Ewan Stevens is racing to try and fit his truck onto the back of a rail carriage.
Drop the ramp.
The longer the delay, the greater the risk that thousands of bees will start to die in their nets.
We've got to move up a bit. There's not enough clearance at the back.
The train connects up to it, the train will be running on the truck. Smash things to pieces and that ain't good news.
Ewan needs to unchain the truck and move it as far forward as he can. It's barely a few centimetres.
How you going up the back?
Right on that switch.
Is she far enough up?
There you go.
Ewan's on by the skin of his teeth. He's ready to leave, but as more minutes tick by, there's still no sign of movement.
We're sitting here now. We've been here for 15 minutes. We should be on the track. I don't know what's going on up in the engine department. It worries me about the bees. Once you start sitting for very long, they come out and go in the shade cloths. And when they start towing us up the track, then a lot of them will die. We need to get going real quick. Well, there's the horn blow, so this is good. We're on our way.
Now, Ewan's powerless as the train winds its way into the forest.
I don't like not being in control of my trucks.
And on the bumpy, narrow track, the carriages are swaying alarmingly.
Geez, look at that. Look at her. By hell, you're rocking, Neil.
You are too.
Ahead is the most dangerous part of the journey, a low, narrow bridge. There's barely enough room for the train, let alone two trucks stacked high with beehives.
You can see how crooked the line is.
If either truck strikes the bridge, the results could be disastrous.
How close are we, Neil?
I don't know.
We're flaming close. By hell, we're close.
That's only just missing.
You wonder why I got grey hairs. Have a look at that track up there.
Yeah, that's pretty close.
At last, it's the end of the line. Ewan and Neil have reached their destination. And just in time. With the day warming up, the bees are beginning to swarm.
Step back, Josh, you'll get stung. Get out of it, mate.
With everyone home, the job's finally done. For the Stevens family, it's been two of the biggest days of the year.
Our heart rate's up a bit at the moment.
Racing the clock to protect their precious bees. But after surviving tough country and a bumpy ride,
By hell, you're rocking, Neil.
the Stevens boys are buzzing.
It is very special for us coming out here on these trucking trips. For quality of honey, it is worth it.
Come on, boys. Arms around each other.
Yeah, take your photo and behave yourself.
I think it's a challenge of it more than anything, yeah.
Someone tells us we can't do it,
And we'll
we
do
go
it.
and do it.